Judging from the applause, I take it that you are a performer?
Yeah, that's
That kind of a performer. Would you consider yourself a leading man?
rather.
And have you appeared in pictures?
Yeah.
Are you best known for your performances in pictures, as opposed to the theater?
Sure, and I think she's right there. I think
I think so, too.
Have you got just one head? There are so many dialects. It is just one person?
Jawohl.
And are you associated with one particular studio?
Yeah.
Yeah?
That's one down the night to go, Mr. Sir.
Have you done serious dramatic parts in pictures?
Oh, yeah.
In just a few decades, this man will become the 40th President of the United States of America and the most powerful person on earth.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
This man, Ronald Reagan, is one of the most influential figures of the past 100 years.
Ronald Reagan, the actor?
Yep. But it wasn't always like that. Long before Ronald Reagan served as the 40th President of the United States, he was simply a child, like anyone else. Born on February 6, 1911, in a humble apartment above a bank in Tampico, Illinois, his early days would shape the man who would later become the leader of the free world. The factor that was probably the most instrumental in forming the man he would eventually become are his parents. His father was John Edward Reagan, but everyone called him Jack. From his father, Ronald was taught about ambition, hard work, and most notably, how to tell a story, something Reagan himself is very well known for. His mother was Nell Reagan. From her, Reagan learned about how to dream big, be optimistic, and have faith. She believed that everything is a part of God's plan, and that even when bad things happen, they will all turn out for good eventually, something she pressed upon a young Reagan. He also had a brother named John Neil Reagan. They nicknamed him Moon because he apparently looked like a character from a comic strip named Moon Mullins. I don't really see that similarity. Anyway, much of Reagan's early life consisted of moving from one place to the next. When he was 2 years old, his father got a job in Chicago and they moved there. Then they moved to Galesburg, and while in Galesburg, a 5-year-old Reagan taught himself to read and learned that he was good at memorizing things he had read, a tool that would come in handy later. Then they moved again, this time to Monmouth, Illinois, where a 7-year-old Reagan would witness Armistice Day and the end of the First World War. Again, the Reagans would move, this time to Dixon, Illinois, where Jack Reagan opened up a shoe shop called Fashion Boot Shop. Finally, the family had a place to live for an extended period of time. Due to moving so much as a young child, Reagan had become shy and did not make friends easily, being afraid that he would soon have to say goodbye to them. However, now that he was in Dixon to stay, he began to relax a little. During his time growing up in Dixon, some of the most important moments of his life would occur. One such event would be in 1922 when, after dragging his drunken father inside from the snow, deciding to become a member of his mother's church, give his heart to Jesus Christ, and get baptized. Reagan was baptized June 21st, 1922. Another pivotal moment would occur when Reagan would overcome his own awkwardness and shyness. His mother Nell and brother Neil both loved acting and performing, unlike Reagan. After much persuasion, Ronald finally agreed to attempt acting and, in his theatrical debut, received a wondrous reception, giving a tremendous boost of confidence to the young Reagan. In 1924, Ronald Reagan entered Dixon High School with a strong love for football. He wanted to play on the team more than anything, but at 5'3" and 108 pounds, his coach wasn't even sure they had regulation pants to fit him. He tried out for the team, but didn't make it as a freshman. Over the summer, Ronald Reagan took a job, working for 35 cents an hour, helping build and remodel homes around Dixon. He learned to lay floors, shingle roofs, and work with concrete. Not only did he earn money for his future, but built up his muscles for football. In the fall of 1925, Ronald Reagan was a sophomore and was proudly named captain of the football team in a newly established division for players under 135 pounds. He loved football as much as he had dreamed and went on to play varsity football his junior and senior years. By then, he was 5'10", 160 pounds, and a proud right guard and tackle. He was also the captain of the swim team and involved himself in writing and acting as president of the drama club. He worked as art director of the yearbook and vice president in charge of entertainment for the YMCA's High Y Club. In his senior year at Dixon High School, Ronald Reagan was elected student body president and had his first real leadership experience. Around the time Ronald Reagan started high school, his church hired a new minister who had 3 very proper daughters. One of them, Margaret Cleaver, caught Ronald Reagan's eye, and a friendship ensued. Margaret reminded him of his mother. She was short, pretty, had auburn hair, and was very intelligent. Ronald Reagan and Margaret were involved in dramatics and leadership at Dixon High School together, and although they kept their relationship at a friendship level until their senior year, for graduation they were very much in love and began to dream of a life together. Starting in 1925, his sophomore year in high school, and continuing for the next 7 summers, Ronald Reagan was the proud lifeguard of Lowell Park's swimming section of the Rock River. When an opening for a lifeguard came up, Ronald Reagan went to the YMCA to take a life-saving course and was then hired for the position. From Memorial Day to Labor Day, he worked 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, keeping swimmers safe. Over the course of 7 summers, he saved 77 lives, a number he kept track of by cutting a notch in a log on the river's edge each time he pulled someone in need out of the water. In 1932, as Ronald Reagan was graduating from Eureka College, he was filled with uncertainty over what he should do with the rest of his life. Reagan could never have imagined where his life's path would lead, though he secretly hoped it would include acting. Since radio was beginning to gain in popularity, Ronald Reagan decided that broadcasting would make a promising career for him, ideally sports announcing in Chicago. So, after graduation, he hitchhiked his way to Chicago and began knocking on radio station doors looking for a job, any job, in broadcasting. But during the Great Depression, jobs were few and far between, especially for those like young Reagan, who had no pertinent work experience. Nothing on the radio was available for him anywhere. Reagan hitchhiked back to Dixon and applied for a job managing the sporting goods department at the new Montgomery wards in Dixon. When the job was given to someone else, young Reagan was truly disheartened and defeated. Now, Reagan always believed that there was a purpose for everything, and all things were part of God's plan if you don't let the setback keep you down. She encouraged her son to just move on, keep trying, and things would work out for the best. In 1932, after being passed over for a job managing the sporting goods department in Montgomery wards in Dixon, Ronald Reagan borrowed the family car with hopes of finding a job in radio. He knew of several small stations outside of Chicago, so he went to the Tri-Cities areas of Davenport, Moline, and Rock Island along the Mississippi River, about 70 miles southwest of Dixon. After being rejected by both stations in Illinois, Ronald Reagan crossed the river into Iowa and stopped at station WOC in Davenport. At WOC, he met with a program director who informed Ronald Reagan that he had an opening yesterday, which had already been filled. Dejected and defeated, Ronald Reagan walked away, muttering under his breath, but loud enough to be heard, "How the heck can you get to be a sports announcer if you can't even get a job at a radio station?" The program director hollered back, "Hold on, you big jerk. What was that you said about sports announcing?" Ronald Reagan told the program director that what he really wanted to do in radio was to be a sports announcer. He asked Reagan if he knew anything about football, which, of course, after his years of playing in high school and in college, Ronald Reagan was quite familiar with. He asked Reagan to pretend to call a game, so Reagan described in great detail an exciting game in which he played at Eureka College. The director liked what he heard and hired him on the spot, offering to pay him $5 plus bus fare to broadcast the Iowa-Minnesota homecoming game. After an impressive first game, Ronald Reagan was hired to call the next 3 Big Ten games for Iowa and would be paid $10 each plus bus fare. He had finally reached his goal of becoming a sports broadcaster, at least for now. At the end of the season, however, WOC did not have a continuing position for him, so Ronald Reagan went home again to Dixon, hoping to find another job. Ronald Reagan had resigned himself to waiting until summer to be hired for another year of lifeguarding at Lowell Park. When the phone rang in February of 1933 asking if he would come fill a vacant staff announcer position at WOC in Davenport, Ronald Reagan didn't hesitate in answering, "I'll be there tomorrow." It would pay $100 a month. He was on the air the first day he arrived, playing records, reading commercials, and filling in between local programming and network broadcasts. Without any real training or instructions, Ronald Reagan failed miserably. After nearly losing his job, friends went to work helping him improve his on-air delivery, his rhythm, cadence, and emotion. It worked, and his steady progress saved his job. WOC soon closed its doors and joined WHO in Des Moines in transmitting from a 50,000-watt clear channel station, one of only 15 in the country. WHO was now one of the most powerful NBC stations in the country, and Ronald Reagan was its sportscaster. He was making $75 a week, but more importantly, was making a name for himself throughout the Midwest, and could now help his family out of their financial troubles. By the age of 22, Ronald Reagan had already achieved a dream of his. He had spent 4 years as a sports announcer at station WHO in Des Moines. If life would have stopped there, he would have been happy the rest of his life. But, as we all know, it didn't end there.